besides my great pleasure in finding art and seeing the rooms come to life with the art installed in it, it's also good business for me. Hi, I'm Jamie Drake, and I am the principal and head designer of my eponymously named firm, Jamie Drake. I'm based here in New York City. My primary practice is high-end residential, although we also do some contract work and commercial installations. One of the things I most enjoy doing for my projects is working on a client's art and working on their collection, if you will, or just furnishing with art, because it can be both. I serve on the Global Advisory Committee of the Great TAFAF Fairs, and I am on the Advisory Committee of the Winter Show here in New York City. It's great when we have the chance to really think about the art carefully and maybe even select it early on in the project. That is not always the case, but at least knowing where it's going to go, what the focal points are going to be. I start my design process with plans and layouts and general space planning, thinking three-dimensionally about the spaces, etc. And I always think about where art will be placed, and whether that's two-dimensional paintings, prints, drawings, or whether it's three-dimensional sculptures. And I think about that just as a placeholders from the early start, because every room comes alive with a specific piece in place. When you're working with a new client and beginning the dialogue about what their taste and preference is in art, it's an extension really of discovering what their taste and preference are as far as overall furnishings and shapes and colors and textures. You need to somehow draw it out of them, but most people can be pretty clear about whether they like figurative work or abstract work. If they like abstract work, they can generally be clear about whether they want something that's very painterly and expressionistic or something that's more rigid and minimalistic. I do think clients often are very shy about revealing what their preferences are, or they're just not really, haven't thought about it before in a thoughtful way. And once you can draw that out of them, it is there for taking. When we're working with a client's existing art, it can be sometimes a gift and sometimes a challenge. It's a gift in a way that you know right up front maybe what you want the color palettes to be, or they can be inspired by the art. Not looking to match, but have some dialogue. It can be a challenge if, say, the proportions aren't right. If the wall that a piece is going to go on is too big or too small. Too small can be sometimes dealt with by framing and being creative with the framing and framing things up larger. Too big, well, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. It's very difficult when a client has pieces that I don't think are particularly good, and they really are hell-bent on keeping them. I muster my most diplomatic words and thoughts to try to convince them that maybe we shouldn't build a room around this piece, or maybe we should move it to a very secondary or even lower location of importance. Staying up to date with what's going on in the art world and artists is kind of like me going to dinner every night. It's around me. I luckily found this gorgeous apartment in the middle of the art district here in New York, the Contemporary Art District. But I love to go to fairs. I mean, I truly love it, and I learn at every fair. People say, well, how was that fair this year? And I'll say, it was fabulous. If there were things that surprised me, things I had never seen before. When I say, it was a good fair, it usually means nothing knocked my socks off. There was beautiful work, but I love to have things that surprise me, just as I like surprise in my interiors. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of clients for decades and decades, many. And over those decades, sometimes we take the art from one project, from one home, into a new space, and we need to build around it. And that's always a fun opportunity of seeing their art and allowing them to enjoy it with new dialogues and new juxtapositions. Many of our clients have more than one home. Many of them have multiples. And I get the good pleasure sometimes of working on multiples for them. I like to think of each project as a fresh start. The great thing about clients who have multiple homes is they're often not burdening you with anything. They're adding another residence. And so you're starting from scratch again. And although their tastes might not vary, I think that at times I can push them to a slightly different direction in each project, depending on the location, the climate, and the culture. When considering the medium of a piece, whether it's a print or a painting, it really depends on the room and where it's being placed. You know, if you have a giant, the important sofa in a room, and it's a good sized room, a print might not hold its own. You might need the depth, the solidity of a painting. But there's nothing to say that there's anything lesser about prints. They're just different. They often can be less in price, certainly. And it's nice to have a mix of things in a home, in a room. I also love finding sculptures, and whether they be something large and totemic and dramatic, and I love the word totemic, I love totemic sculptures, or something small that you discover on a tabletop. They just add a layer of interest to a room and something to discover. I think besides my great pleasure in finding art and seeing the rooms come to life with the art installed in it, it's also good business for me. My fee structure on art can vary. Most art advisors charge 10%. We have some contracts where we get the art in at the same rate markup as the FF&E, i.e. 35%. We have other contracts that have a range, a tiered markup. So it's the full 35%, say up to $100,000 or $150,000, and then it steps down at each $100,000 until $1 million. So there's a variety of ways, but it's a very profitable thing to do. For my younger clients or clients who might have smaller art budgets, I really enjoy and love finding things. Now, it can be a challenge. There might be less options, but I go to the secondary art fairs. I go to the smaller galleries on the Lower East Side, galleries in London that I know of, and it can be a combination of things. I have artists who I know, painters who I admire greatly, who also will do commissions. One of the great things I get to do as a designer, and that we all get to do, is enrich people's lives. We really help them live their best life. And investing in art can mean a number of things. It could just be investing in the visual pleasure of whatever it is, whether it has intrinsic cash money, big bucks value, or whether it's just beauty. There are times when a client considers something that is more valuable, and I talk about it, or I present something that is maybe at a higher price point than they're used to. And I talk about, now this is an investment quality piece. That's the term I use. Think about this as a diversification of your assets. And it's true, it's totally true. You buy a known artist, you spend $500,000, $1 million, chances are that will hold its value or go up. I have a client who years and years ago I bought a fabulous Warhol painting for it, a really absolutely graphically important Warhol, a 9 Maryland's Reversal series. And yes, we paid a lot of money for it, but nothing compared to what it's worth today. And even in considering inflation, it's worth 20 times that. And they said to me, the only thing I regret is I didn't buy more when you encouraged me to.